I'm Courtney Eckerly here at MarketingSherpa Summit 2016 in Las Vegas, and with me is Charles Duhigg, who is a New York Times reporter and the author of The Power of Habit. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So just to start off, well, what exactly is the power of habit? Why is that one small thing in my day so important?
Well, so it turns out that about 40 to 45% of what we do every single day, although we think of ourselves as people who can make decisions and in control of our own lives, 40 to 45% of what we do every day is a habit, right? It's something that happens almost subconsciously, and we do it because we fall into these routines. And right now we're actually living through a golden age of understanding the neurology of habit formation, which is incredibly great if you want to change that 40 to 45% that you're doing every single day, or if you're a marketer who wants to influence what people are doing with their time and their money. And at the core of this is this kind of central insight, which is that every habit has three components. There's a cue, which is like a trigger for an automatic behavior to start. And then a routine, which is the behavior itself, which is what we usually think of as habits. And then finally, a reward. And what we've learned is that these cues and these rewards, these are really the important parts of what influences how people behave when they say, oh, I just did it because it's a habit. If we can diagnose these cues and rewards, we can change how people behave.
So what's a specific example that you've seen of somebody specifically utilizing habit?
It's a great question. So one of my favorite examples is there was a German healthcare company who a couple of years ago did a big experiment where they brought a whole bunch of their folks into a room, and they said, all of you should exercise more, right? They said a little bit more. Well, first of all, they said it in German, which I can't do, but second of all, they went on a little bit longer. And we've all heard this, right? We should all exercise more. Then they took a small portion of this audience and they took them into a side room and they said, okay, this is what we'd like you to do. And they explained to them about the habit loop, these cues and these rewards. And they said, we want you to choose an obvious cue, like put your running shoes next to your bed so you see them when you wake up first thing in the morning, or plan on meeting your friend at the gym on a Wednesday night. And then they said, and when you get done exercising, give yourself immediately a small piece of chocolate. Now, most of us actually, we'll go to the gym and then we wait 45 minutes to eat the chocolate because we want to pretend that they're not related to each other. But what the German scientists figured was that if they could somehow activate this reward instinct, that people would be able to develop a habit around exercise more easily. So 6 months later, they tracked down everyone who's in the room. All the folks who had just gotten the normal lecture, about 18% of them were exercising. The folks who had gotten the special additional just 15 minutes of choosing a cue and choosing a reward and training themselves to have a habit, 24% of them are exercising, which is actually one of the largest changes we've seen in a massive intervention in people's exercise behaviors. And the reason why is because they trained people to think in terms of cues and rewards. They trained them to begin associating. When I wake up in the morning, I see my shoes, and that makes me start craving this piece of chocolate I'm gonna get when I'm finally done with my run, or a smoothie, or a nice long shower. And then when they got home, they gave themselves a reward. And over time, their brain kind of cut a deeper groove around this cue and this routine and reward. And as a result, the behavior became more and more automatic.
So when I'm going to go to the gym, I give myself what I like to call a pre-reward, where I give myself the piece of chocolate ahead of time. So you're saying that's 100% not going to work?
Well, I mean, if it's working for you, it's great. But there might be other ways to do it. There's a woman named Katie Milkman who's a research psychologist or economist at the University of Pennsylvania, and she did this experiment where she told people that they could listen to a book on tape, but they could only listen while they were exercising. It was kind of a pre-ward, right? Because you're doing it as soon as you're exercising. And people started exercising way more because they craved this book, right? They wanted to find out what happened next, but they had this rule, I can only do it when I'm exercising. So I think what I would suggest is with the chocolate, maybe wait until after the exercise, but you can find something to do during the exercise that will help sort of cement that your brain likes this activity and that it's attracted to it.
So how can marketers give customers that sort of habitual reward that will keep them coming back?
It's a great question. And there's a couple questions that they have to answer ahead of time. The first is they have to choose a cue, right? We know that the most successful products are things that have these obvious cues. And in fact, if you think about the success of our iPhones, One of the things that Apple found and that the entire industry found is that it was when they started making these things vibrate in our pockets or ding with a sound when we got a text or an email. That's when people all of a sudden started pulling them out of their pocket and checking them without even really thinking about it. So you have to find a cue that it's almost impossible to ignore, something that reminds you that it's time for this behavior, even on a subconscious level. And then secondly, you have to give them a reward that they actually want. Right? There's so many products where in a conference room, a bunch of people came up and they said, we want to give away crowns or points if you go and you do this online behavior. And it turns out when you talk to people that they say, I don't really care about getting crowns or becoming the mayor of my pizza store or getting these points. There's no reward value in that for me. So you have to deliver a reward that people actually find rewarding, which of course is, the basics of marketing is have a value proposition that people actually see value in. But the more explicitly you can think about it, the more explicitly you think about delivering that after the behavior that you're trying to encourage, the more it'll become automatic, the more it becomes a habit.
So marketers have to do sort of Pavlovian experiment on their customers.
A little bit. And of course there's there's a little bit of a trick here, right? Like you don't want to cause your customers to start salivating. Well, depending on what you're selling, you might want to get them to do that. But there is an art to figuring out how to create these habits, and at the core of it is breaking down these individual behaviors. You're exactly right. Pavlov had figured this out decades ago. But the ability now for us to see in the brain how powerful these cues and rewards are reinforces that the right way to think about marketing is to think about how you're touching all parts of that habit loop instead of just hoping that it happens.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for
sitting
down and talking with me.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And if you would like more content, please go to MarketingSherpa.com.